Now, the world's poorest economies had a lifeline handed to them, an economic lifeline of sorts handed to them this morning. The G20 has agreed to suspend debt service payments at least until to the end of the year. Now, that'll free up some $20 billion for developing countries. The Saudis hosted the G20 meeting yesterday via video conference. The Saudi Finance Minister is Mohammed Al-Jadaan. He joins me now from Riyadh for this exclusive discussion. Minister, thank you. The G20 seems to have been slow to start, but is now picking up speed with real concrete policies that are going to help those most in need.
Thank you very much, Richard. I think the G20, to the opposite, the G20 have actually acted very quickly, robustly, strongly, and swiftly. We have had 10 meetings over the last 6 weeks. The custodian of the two holy mosques called for an extraordinary summit that was held on 26th of March, which mandated the ministers of finance and the ministers of health to put together a plan. That plan had been worked on for the last 2 weeks and was announced yesterday. That came about with full agreement from the G20 members, full cooperation, full solidarity. That plan included, as you have just said, suspension of all debt service to the poor countries. That would give them a breathing space of north of $20 billion, in addition to obviously various others. So the speed, the severity, and the shock that these countries have received calls for an assistance.
Is it your thinking, Minister, that more will need to be done to help those most indebted countries? It's one thing to suspend debt service, but don't you think in the fullness of time you're going to be looking at debt relief?
G20 presidency strategy, which we have discussed with the G20 members and international organizations, basically consists of assessing consistently, because the economic and health situation develops every day, so we need to monitor it every day, and then ensure that we protect the people, we protect the health service workers on the front line, we protect businesses, and that has been done. $7 trillion have been injected by the G20 economies and the economy. And then, obviously, the developing nations and poor countries that they have received the debt suspension. This is just a temporary process, because for us to look at restructuring of the debt, providing more debt, it will take time. So, yes, there is a need, and we are working on it as we speak, through the G20 action plan that we have put together and was approved yesterday.
In terms of the money that Saudi is putting aside towards pandemic relief, you're putting $500 million towards that'll be dispersed to various organizations. Is this goal towards helping fund a vaccine, to help fund readiness for the future?
Absolutely. I think for the last few years, the health organizations around the world were crying out for support. That funding gap, the immediate urgent funding gap, was not met. Saudi Arabia, during the extraordinary summit by the leaders, have agreed with the G20 members to put together a plan to fill that gap. Currently, that gap, the short-term gap, is assessed at $8 billion. And we are announcing through your channel now, through your network, that we are committing $500 million to the various international organizations. And we are calling on the rest of the G20 members and international organizations, the rest of the world, to put together more money to fill the $8 billion gap, and we believe that will be done.
Minister, I want to talk about your own economy, if I may, sir, and not so much about whether this oil price will stick or not, but the ability of your economy, which is showing certain signs of spending strains to maintain the current levels of spending, which would be very difficult with oil prices at these lower levels and the agreed cuts. How far do you think you'll have to suspend the Crown Prince's vision for the future, the diversification, the Vision 2030 plan? How much will that have to be altered and suspended to account for the new economic reality?
Richard, we are facing this shock, whether it is the COVID-19 or the oil price, from a point of strength. And that was confirmed, if you recall, only in the last 10 days. The three international rating agencies, Standard & Poor, Fitch, and the rest of them have confirmed Saudi Arabia's rating with an outlook stable. We have done a lot of work in the last 3 years to diversify the economy. We have significant financial buffers. So we believe that we will be able to face it. We will need to reprioritize our spending, of course, like everybody else, but I believe the main plans are on track.